Veldora's memory unlocks. Deep inside the core of Tempest, where the air was still and magic hummed like a living pulse, Veldora stood frozen. Before him hovered the symbol, etched in golden mana, projected from the shattered spelltech fragment Diablo had recovered. It burned in the air, not with fire, but with memory. And for Veldora, it was like hearing a name whispered through time. Velzion. The moment struck him like lightning through the soul. His eyes widened. His breath caught. He didn't remember seeing this glyph, not clearly. But his body did. His soul did. His origin did. And then, like a dam cracking, his memory opened. Long ago, before Tempest, before demon lords, before Rimuru, before even the modern world was written in mana, there were the first flames, the true dragons. Veldora, Velgrind, Velzard, and one more, Velzion. He wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the kindest. But he was the most curious. While Veldora embodied storm, Velgrind wielded flame, and Velzard ruled ice, Velzion searched for something deeper, the very fabric of mana itself. Not how it was used, but what it was. Veldora remembered it now. A chamber carved from light. A gathering of the four siblings, pure, radiant, and ancient. Velzion stood before them, not as a rebel, but as a brother burdened with revelation. The world is incomplete, Velzion had said. Mana isn't meant to be used. It's meant to be understood. He spoke of unity, of reformatting existence so that thought, magic, life, and were no longer separated. A single system, a singularity, but the others didn't understand. Couldn't. What Velzion was describing wasn't evolution. It was annihilation through synthesis. If he succeeded, he would unravel all magical distinctions, breaking down magic types, spiritual realms, and dimensional balance. He wasn't seeking destruction. He was seeking mergence, and the world wasn't ready. So they stopped him, not with rage, not with war, but with a choice. Velzion saw their fear. He felt the fracture between them. So he sealed himself, not as punishment, but as protection. He created a construct around his soul, tethered to the ley lines of the earth. A vault not just of knowledge, but of self-containment. And then he disappeared. Veldora gasped as the memory ended. The glyph flickered once more and faded. The air in the room grew heavier, as if the world itself acknowledged what had just been remembered. Rimuru approached, concerned. "What did you see?" Veldora's voice, usually so arrogant and bombastic, was quiet. "I remembered a brother. Not a fallen one, not a forgotten one. One who chose silence, because we weren't ready to listen. Now, as the seal below Tempest pulses louder, and the glyphs from the past awaken, Veldora no longer wonders if Velzion will return. He wonders what he'll find when he does. Because the world that rejected him once is now ruled by the very chaos he tried to prevent. The vault's projection. As the glyph faded from the air, the relic vault deep beneath Tempest stirred once more. Light traced across the walls in spiral patterns. The floating hexagonal plates rearranged themselves like puzzle pieces obeying a forgotten algorithm. Then silence. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then came a projection. A figure appeared, not physical, not illusion, but memory encoded into light and mana. The projection displayed a vast, ancient chamber, the Council of the First Flame, or what would later be known in myth as the Dragon Conclave. A place that should no longer exist. A time erased even from the minds of the oldest spirits. At the center of the council stood four beings, majestic, radiant, elemental. Veldora, Velgrind, Velzard, and Velzion. Unlike the others, Velzion's form shimmered strangely, less solid, more concept than creature. He stood calmly before the others, robes woven from strands of flowing code like runes. His voice echoed, recorded in fragments but still intelligible. Mana is unstable. The world is correcting itself through chaos. But what if we stopped fighting it? What if we became part of the correction? He spoke not of destruction, but of absorption. Velzion had discovered a way to synchronize with the planet's mana system. Not tap it, not use it, become it. If successful, he would turn himself into a living conduit, a magical singularity capable of connecting dimensions, life forms, and thought into one stream of being. But to do that, he would have to break the existing structure. There would be no more need for evolution, he said. Only unity. Pure, clean whole. To the others, it sounded like annihilation. To Velzion, it was salvation. The memory shimmered again. Now the chamber was tense. Velgrind paced, flames trailing behind her like a living warning. Velzard stood cold and still, arms crossed in silent defiance. Veldora shouted something, angry, frightened. The audio was garbled, but the emotion was clear. Fear, not of Velzion himself, but of what would be lost if he succeeded. Individual will, choice, chaos. Velzion did not argue. He only bowed his head and said, "Then I will not force the world to become whole. I will wait until the world breaks itself." And then, the final fragment showed him turning, walking into a spiral of light, constructing his own seal as he vanished from history. The projection ended. In the vault chamber beneath Tempest, silence returned, but the air was charged. Rimuru stood in awe. This wasn't just a memory, it was a warning. Raphael confirmed. Correct. The seal was designed to activate only if large-scale reality fluctuation aligned with Velzion's mana signature. Current events matched the threshold. Rimuru asked the obvious. What happens if he wakes up? Diablo, unusually serious, answered. The world won't end. It'll be rewritten. And perhaps the most disturbing part? Velzion never intended to hurt anyone. He simply wanted to fix everything, even if it meant erasing everything we are. The seal cracks. The vault projection ended, but the earth beneath Tempest didn't stop moving. In the hours that followed, something began to shift, not violently, not loudly, but with quiet inevitability. The seal that held Velzion was no longer sleeping. It was straining. It began subtly. Warning mana currents in the labyrinth became unstable, spiraling faster than normal, resonating in perfect harmonic loops. Warning low-frequency tremors spread outward from Sector Omega, but couldn't be detected by traditional seismographs. Only magical intuition. Warning beasts in the Jura forest grew restless. Birds flew off course. Elementals refused to answer summons. To the untrained eye, nothing was wrong. But to Raphael, the signs were clear. The seal is fracturing. Not yet open, but stressed. And stress in magical systems doesn't create cracks. It creates rips. Rimuru convened a closed-chamber meeting with Veldora, Diablo, Raphael, and Rimuru. No advisors. No counsel. Just the core. Raphael laid it out. The seal Velzion created was meant to last forever, tethered to ley line balance. However, recent global changes, including the reawakening of Velgrind, magical saturation from Rimuru's evolution, and activation of the vault, had destabilized the network around it. Microfractures were forming. Not physical cracks, but conceptual ones. Holes in the magical logic keeping Velzion's essence asleep. What happens if it breaks? Rimuru asked. He awakens. As in fully? No. First, the consciousness. The body would follow, if permitted. That made everyone go silent. Because consciousness meant thought, and thought meant choice. The question wasn't, can we stop it? It was, what would Velzion do if he woke up and saw this world? Would he be proud? Horrified? Indifferent? Would he try again? Or would he finish what he started? Outside Tempest, the sky began to turn strange shades during dusk. Light fracturing oddly, clouds spiraling in unnatural symmetry. Some described it as beautiful. To those attuned to magic, it felt like the world was being measured. Veldora stared long at the horizon. He was calm. Always. Too calm. If he wakes up, I don't think he'll rage. I think he'll decide. Rimuru clenched his fist. Then we decide first. And that's when he made his choice. Rimuru makes a decision. The storm was coming, no longer in metaphor, but in resonance, pressure, and rising magical frequency. And like any true leader, Rimuru didn't wait for it to crash over his people. He chose to meet it head-on. The decision wasn't made lightly. There were voices in the chamber, cautious ones. Shuna pleaded for delay. There's still time. Maybe the seal will stabilize. Benimaru argued for containment. We can isolate the sector, fortify it with magical suppressants. Even Raphael offered simulations of non-intrusive intervention. But none of that addressed the real problem. Velzion's consciousness was already awakening, and Rimuru couldn't allow that to happen without knowing what he was waking into. So he stood, looked each of them in the eye, and said, "I'm going down there." The room went silent. Not because it was unexpected, because it meant Rimuru was putting himself at the center of the unknown. But none tried to stop him. They simply prepared. The descent was organized in minutes. Veldora would accompany him, not only as power, but as blood, a sibling to the one sealed below. Diablo would flank them, shadow, blade, and will incarnate. Raphael would manage containment calculations in real time, with a new array of adaptive sigils designed to interfere with awakening sequences if needed. No army, no fanfare, just 3 beings, each of them enough to change the course of a nation, walking into the quiet core of a forgotten god. Sector Omega wasn't like the rest of the labyrinth. It was older. The mana wasn't organized into layers. It pulsed in spirals, like a memory looping infinitely. Glyphs on the wall weren't in any known script. Symbols reconfigured themselves as they passed, as if watching them. And at the bottom, beyond a veil of crystallized space, was a door. Not mechanical, not magical in the traditional sense. It was conceptual, held shut by Velzion's own will. Rimuru reached out, his hand just inches from the surface, when Raphael spoke. "Caution, there is something on the other side. Conscious. Listening." Veldora frowned. "He's already awake?" "No, not fully. He is dreaming." Diablo, ever still, simply said, "Then let's make sure he dreams of peace, not revenge." Rimuru stepped forward. "Not peace." He touched the door. "Truth." And the seal reacted, not violently, not defensively, but like an eye slowly opening in the dark. And with it came the voice. First contact with Velzion's consciousness. The air didn't shift. The ground didn't shake. But the moment Rimuru laid his hand on the conceptual seal, something deeper than matter stirred. Thought. It wasn't speech. It wasn't mana. It was pure consciousness, like standing in a silent, endless ocean where awareness itself whispered. And Rimuru heard it. At first it came as pressure, like the weight of a mountain made of memory. Then it fractured into intention. Images, fleeting, abstract, flashed through his mind. A sky without stars. A city made of light. Dragons dissolving into energy. A child staring at fire that didn't burn. Then a voice. Not male, not female, not even bound to language. Just presence, vast and unknowable. Who touches thought? Not with fear, but with purpose. Rimuru didn't flinch. Raphael stood ready to intervene. Veldora tensed. Diablo watched, but Rimuru stepped deeper, letting the presence wrap around him. "I am not your enemy," he said aloud, and also within. The consciousness pulsed. "You're not mine. You are anomaly. Change." Rimuru felt his own mind exposed, his evolution, his rebirth, his path from slime to sovereign. All of it laid bare to something that had watched the world be born, reshaped, and almost rewritten. And then the voice asked, "Do you seek balance?" Rimuru paused and answered, "No, I seek freedom." Silence followed, but it wasn't rejection. It was curiosity. The presence pulsed again, and this time it addressed all 3. "Storm, shadow, slime, you stand at the edge of my dream. The world changed while I slept. I must see it before I decide." Rimuru narrowed his eyes. "Decide what?" And the voice answered, "Whether it should remain." Then all light vanished. Rimuru was pushed back from the seal, not forcefully, but with clarity. The contact ended. The vault dimmed. Sector Omega went silent again. But something had changed. Veldora spoke first. That wasn't rage. That was awareness. Ancient and clear. Raphael whispered a final line. Velzion is no longer dormant. His mind is active. The countdown has begun. And in that quiet, final moment of the chapter, Rimuru stood still, eyes calm. Because the next time that door opens, it won't be a whisper waiting on the other side. It will be a judgment.